What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a special edition of the Saturday, January 11th, 2025 edition of the Daily Energy News Beat Stand-Up. We've got it was a heck of a week, Stu, a long week. The team has picked out top stories from this week. I had a solo show on Monday that I just got all worked up about. I was throwing it was a pretty wild one. You know, it's bad when you get a text from your mom saying, maybe drink a little less coffee before you start firing off these solo shows. So didn't really work. I'm still going to drink the amount of coffee, but we appreciate the feedback. It was a busy week, Stu. Busy week.
Oh, unbelievable. The news, everything from Donald Trump trying to buy Alaska. Oh, no, he already bought that. So, I mean, we're talking Greenland and everything else. You can't buy this kind of entertainment. Oh,
no. If we buy Canada, I'm going to Calgary. We're shooting a live show from Calgary. I promise you that.
I just want to say this. For all the movie stars that moved to Canada when President Trump got elected, and now he's taking control of it again, the joke's on you guys.
The joke is on you guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and kick it over to the team. Quickly, though, guys, as always, we got to pay the bills. This show is sponsored, EnergyNewsBeat.com, the best place for all your energy and oil and gas news. The news and analysis that you'll quote-unquote hear from this is all brought to you by said website. Stu and the team do a tremendous job with that website, making sure it stays up to speed so you can be at the tip of the spear when it comes to the energy and the oil and gas business. Go ahead and check out the description below for all links to the timestamped links to the articles. Please subscribe to us on Substack, the best way to support the show. We are starting to roll out some paid-only subscriber articles. We've got 2 up so far, one on the Jones Act and another on the infamous Mines Mineral Model, which does some critical minerals transition estimation, an awesome white paper. We spent a lot of time working on that, so please go check that out. We've got our 3rd white paper that we're dropping, which is an add-on to that Mines Mineral Model, which basically says, okay, given the results of this critical minerals model, is there some interesting investment decisions that we could glean from that? We don't give investment advice, but we do give some interesting tidbits there. So please go subscribe, theenergynewsbeat.substack.com. You can also check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Give us a 5-star review and a follow there if you can. But guys, we'll let you get out of here. I'm going to throw it over to the team. We'll see you Monday.
Let's start with our buddies over there in Germany. You and I have had a laugh with Chancellor Schultz.
I see nothing.
I see nothing. He has begged for, here, let me start with this. You go green energy policies, you go fiscally broke, regimes change if you don't get low-cost natural gas back in. German purchases of Russian uranium surge. The side note to this, Michael, is Germany shut down all of their nuclear reactors and they have not filed to turn them back on yet, but they're already buying uranium. What happens when people don't have low-cost energy? Regimes change. Germany dramatically increased its uranium imports in 2024, bringing in 68.8 tons, a 70% jump in increase. Considering their reactors are shut down, do you see them applying to get them turned back on here pretty quick?
Well, they're gonna need to, because if you're talking about the whole critical mineral space, and we'll talk a little bit more in the transition about some critical mineral stuff that we're dropping on our Substack as a little bit of a tease there. But if you're going to move to a nuclear era, if that's what needs to happen, this stuff is critical. And if all of a sudden now you go from, oh, well, we can't import natural gas from Russia. Oh, but now we need to increase uranium. It's like, well, it's the same thing. There's no difference.
So anyway, I got really tickled. And when I had talked about this before, German MP, the minister, calls for NordStream to be reactivated. This is following last week's rumors that from the Slavic president, Michael, said, oh, by the way, this is being set up for a U.S. company to buy the NordStream. For our listeners that don't know what NordStream is from Russia to Germany under the Baltic Sea that President Biden alluded to. him making sure that it would not be in service. Now there is one of those pipelines still capable. I have talked to George McMillan about this, and Germany is really needing low cost Russian natural gas in order to survive. They have been deindustrialized. They've lost BASF, their fertilizer plant. They've shut down their steel mills. They have shut down several VW. They have lost all this stuff. They are on the borderline of total collapse. Ukraine drives the energy price up further by stopping the transit of Russian natural gas pipeline in Europe, Dahlgren wrote X on Thursday, complaining the German government and the EU are happily watching the destruction of the European industry due to high energy prices. Michael, this also brings up the interview that I did with George. We are seeing the potential destruction of NATO and the EU coming around out of this. This is huge.
This is huge. And my question to you is, how does NordStream fit in with the negotiations that are going to happen starting January 21st with the new administration? Where does NordStream fit in with all that?
Outstanding question, Michael. President Trump is sitting back over here going, the whole reason Biden and his interfering three-letter agencies that I don't want to mention because it gets us thrown off of certain things, they've been interfering with governments and elections. George McMillan has brought this great point out. If President Trump allows the purchase of a U.S. to end let's say the war is ended, Germany can buy that existing pipeline that is still there and they can turn it on immediately. They can get cheap Russian natural gas, but President Trump then would control how fast the other ones come on. So it's still a geopolitical control issue that is at play. Holy smokes, Batman. And when you have President Trump saying, I want you to buy LNG from me, or I'm going to tariff everything out of the EU. Holy smokes, this is a gigantic discussion.
And I love that. But do we have enough LNG export capacity to meet that demand? That's what I think is interesting. And not to gear us off top, but everybody keeps asking me, oh, drill, baby, drill. What's Trump going to do to oil prices? Well, in my opinion, and we'll get into a little bit of the sign of optimism for the oil business, but drill, baby, drill is code for deregulation. And deregulation really has more to do with pipelines and LNG export terminals than it does with drilling. We'll get into a little bit more at sign of optimism.
Yep. Biden poised to announce offshore drilling ban to appease the Green lobby. I'm talking to David Blackman on Tuesday on this one. He and I are going to do a deep dive on our podcast, and we're going to sit down and go over this. This is a double-barreled middle finger from the President of the United States. Biden has stuck it to the American people, and this is going to be a painful thing for Trump to get undone. President Joe Biden is reportedly preparing to restrict offshore oil and gas drilling in his final days of office, a move that would placate the environmentalist lobby and potentially obstruct President-elect Donald Trump's plan to unleash the energy sector. Here's where the Chevron deference does mean it's okay, but we have a lot of judges and Obama and Biden judges that can delay this forever. And drill baby drill is not drill baby drill. Drill baby drill is drill when fiscally responsible and when the courts allow. That is a huge difference on this. And I find it totally despicable that the Biden administration handlers are doing this, because we know that Biden is only trying to think of what his depends are full, or if he's having ice cream, because it is nothing to do with the government.
And to be clear, this is obviously only over federal land. You're talking about the coast
That
of
is correct.
California and mainly Gulf of Mexico.
And
this is what I
Alaska.
find interesting, though, Stu. Here's this quote from the article. While many of the Biden administration's energy policies will be relatively easy to reverse, the reportedly forthcoming offshore drilling decree will be permanent and difficult to revoke because it is enabled by a law that permits presidents to protect federal waters from drilling without clearly allowing them to walk back prior designations. And that's all according to Bloomberg News. And so that's the part that just boggles my mind. It's easy to enact. The president has the authority to enact this law, but why then doesn't he have the authority, or the new president have the authority, to roll the decree back? That's what I don't understand.
I don't know, but I'm going to ask David Blackman, and David and I are going to cover this. So this is just huge.
All right. Politics. Biden bans new offshore oil and gas drilling in most U.S. coastal waters. Super interesting. I'm going to read a little bit from the article here. President Biden has begun taking executive action in his final days to protect more than 625 million acres of American ocean from offshore drilling. The White House announced early Monday, as if they had listened to our show that we recorded Sunday afternoon, said, ooh, we got to get out ahead of these guys. They're in front of us here. The move to ban new offshore oil and gas drilling in most U.S. coastal waters includes the entire East Coast, eastern Gulf of Mexico, the Pacific off the coast of Washington, Oregon, California, and additional portions of the North Bering Sea and Alaska where future oil and gas leasing could not take place. Here's a quote from President Biden himself. My decision reflects what coastal community, businesses, and beachgoers have known for a long time, that drilling off these coasts would cause irreversible damage to places we hold dear and is unnecessary to meet our nation's energy needs. To be honest, slightly half of that quote I don't disagree with, mainly when he says unnecessary to meet our energy's needs, but I'll get back to it, so I'll give him a pass there. This next quote is where we go off the rails. As the climate crisis continues to threaten our communities, we're threatened, folks. Remember, you got a gun to your head. It's just unbelievable. I'll start with, as the climate crisis continues to threaten communities across the country, and we are transitioning to a clean energy economy. I don't know what transition he's talking about, but clearly something's going on in his mind there. Now is the time to protect these coasts for our children and grandchildren. When he means grandchildren, he means the grandbaby that he's denying is really his grandbaby. If you want to know more about that, look that up. But I'm throwing this offline here. I'm spicy today, folks. But this is obviously this is a complete, as the title says, it's completely political in the fact that, he's got to throw some red meat to his constituents to, secure up his legacy so that when he goes and builds his $4 billion presidential library, he can say he stood up to the big bad oil companies. He fixed climate change. He banned drilling on 625 acres of offshore land that really had no oil. And that's the funny part. So if you dive in specifically to where he actually didn't, he banned this drilling. Let's go back. Where did he ban it from? Well, he banned it on the East Coast, okay? So like North Carolina, Virginia, all that jazz. Eastern Gulf of Mexico, the Pacific off the coast of Washington, Oregon, California, and additional portions of the North Bering Sea, which you couldn't drill for oil and gas anyway. So where exactly is all the offshore activity? Well, if you look on a map, what's funny is the majority of the U.S. offshore production is central and western Gulf of Mexico, which remains unaffected by the ban. So, as always, it's a look at me now, look what I'm doing. I'm protecting the environment, but I'm not really protecting anything that would be drilled anytime soon. I don't know anybody clamoring to go drill some very deep offshore Atlantic wells. No one wants to do that. No one's clamoring to go drill next offshore Oregon. No one's really clamoring to go drill a winter well up in the North Bering Sea Strait. You might end up on the deadliest catch because you catch something more than just fish. What's interesting, though, is that he and Biden has actually gone ahead and okayed some lease sales in a 3-year span. Basically, in 23, he approved sales in 25, this year, 27, and 2029. It is the minimum that they could legally offer. And, basically the reason why he did that is because under a 2022 climate law, the government must offer at least 60 million acres of offshore oil and gas leases in any 1-year period before it can offer offshore wind leases. So a little give here, a little red meat there, a little red meat there. And don't forget that President Biden was the one that okayed the Willow Project, which really put his quote-unquote climate legacy at risk. So he, again, threw out a little red meat to his constituency. It's politics, politics, politics. Much like real estate, location, location, location. This move is all about politics. He says a lot, but doesn't actually do anything. If that isn't the theme of President Biden's administration, I don't know what is. Not doing much, just kind of there, talking some words that don't really make sense. Pretty unbelievable, but he does go ahead and do this. You did hear it first from the Swami, a.k.a. Stuart Turley, here on this show the day before. So, folks, that's why you tune into the show. It's clearly not for the jokes. It's for our hard-hitting analysis on this stuff. But, I think the interesting part is no one is really sure how President Trump can undo this. And part of the reason why I think Biden did this and he picked where he did pick is so that Trump just says, it's okay, we wouldn't drill there anyway, I'm good. You don't see the president of Chevron standing up and saying, wait, we were about to go drill a deep offshore Atlantic well. All you've got is the CEO of the American Petroleum Institute, who's got to do this because he's an oil and gas lobbyist, say, American voters sent us a clear message in support of domestic energy development, and yet the current administration is using its final days in office to cement a record of doing everything that is possible to restrict it. I mean, he's true. It is true. Now, again, look under the hood a little bit. Nothing's really going on. But Mike Summers, president CEO over there at API, doing what he gets paid to do. So, he's got to show something for cashing that nice paycheck he's getting.
Why would President Trump want to annex Greenland? Is it for the weather or for the critical minerals?
Let me guess. I don't know. Oh, that's a tough one. Can you help explain it to me?
Well, when you take a look, if you look at the article, we have Russia right over the Arctic, and then you have Greenland and you have Canada. My father had an emergency when he was flying a B-47 on nuclear alert and had to dump all of his fuel and land in Greenland and almost ran off the runway. It is a very short runway in Greenland, by the way. So if you take a look, it is right there. And for our national security interest, in the presser today, President Trump was standing there and he says there's all these Russian boats and there's all these Chinese boats. China has actually started a mining company, and it has been mining critical minerals in Greenland, stealing them pretty much at almost nothing, and it is amazing. I also embedded in here from Donald Trump Jr. a little bit of a town hall that they had in there, and all the Danish people were like, we're in, go ahead. So this is absolutely a hoot. I did not think this was all there. So I asked on X, I asked Grok, what kind of minerals are there? Lithium, graphite, niobium, platinum group metals, titanium, cobalt, zirconium, uranium, iron ore, zinc, gold. This is like exactly what we need. But I want to go on record, Michael. We do not need to be strip mining that up there without taking care of the environment, even if it is more expensive, and we don't need to have whales doing the work. I know you don't have a high regard for whale life, but I have a high regard for children and the environment, and I think that we would be better at it than China or in, looking at how that. It's all about the critical minerals, but it's also the ships. I agree with President Trump on this. I think it's going to be kind of interesting.
Well, I think this article also points out Green Lives Matter, Ultrafrog 17. I love this tweet here. The reason why President Trump wants to buy Greenland, it's all about his trade war with China. And this is where I think, and I completely agree with this analysis here, it's got nothing to do with, in my opinion, strategic military capabilities. I mean, sure, we've already got a base there. So
sure,
maybe we can make
there.
the base.
Yes.
Maybe we can make the base a little bigger, a little warmer. Who knows? It's all for the critical minerals, and it really has more to do with hurting China than helping us. I mean, all these critical minerals are theoretically used for the energy transition. We're about to cover 2 stories in which Trump said, we ain't doing the energy transition anymore. So why do we need these minerals if we aren't going to use them for all of the stuff because Trump's about to ban it all? Wait a second. It's because it's all part of the economic war with China. Now, personally, I'd rather get into an economic war with China than a hot war with China.
Exactly.
Ideally, we get into no war with China. But if we got to do something, at least make it this. So that's my read on all this.
Well, we also need the critical minerals because, like we talked about on the Sunday, the Monday show, gallium. We don't the whatever it was for the minerals. We don't even have that. So Trump says he wants no wind turbines built in his administration. Michael, if you had asked me on our Sunday show that we recorded, if I had this on my bingo card this week, would Trump buy Greenland and would he ban windmills? No, I did not. We are going to have, this is a quote from today's presser. We are going to have a policy where no windmills are being built, Trump said in a lengthy tirade against wind power during a conference at his Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida. I did not write that. That was from the article. They litter our country, Trump said. Nobody wants them and they're very expensive. Here's where, if they were fiscally responsible and they actually worked, I'd be almost all in on them because it would reduce fossil fuels, but they're not fiscally responsible from day one. And then the waste that these things have. Now, he is not picking a fight, Michael. This needs to be known. He's not picking a fight with the solar industry because he goes, the solar panels are okay. So he's kind of drawn a line in the sandbox between wind and solar, and he's kind of going, I'm going to take out wind at the throat. I did not see that one coming.
Well, because you could argue that solar has some use. There is a sliver of use. In my opinion, wind has no use. The only thing wind has, there's two reasons why wind is good. One, offshore wind kills the whales. We know we love that. And number two, to some of these, there are some farms and some ranches in Oklahoma, Kansas.
I got a whale pod calling in right now.
Yeah. PETA's calling in. They're shutting us down. Demonetize. But second, you also have to realize there is a small segment of the ranching community in North Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas that does rely on the surface use damages and relies on this for revenue. So I don't know how you obviously he's saying no more should be built. I was looking this up today, there's about 8 to 10 gigawatts of wind power already approved and in the process of being built. So who knows what happens to that. But there is a small sliver of revenue that does go to these landowners who, need it, especially if you're living in a place that, it's hard to ranch, your crops don't really grow. How else do you make money? Throw up a wind farm? I wouldn't do it, but, you paid me enough money. I'd throw a wind farm in my backyard. Who knows?
And it's a big problem that we're about to see in the next 5 years, Michael, is that the wind farms that are out there that go broke, who cleans that crap up? It's about $500,000 per windmill to take it down and get it out of there. Who's going to reclaim the land? It's about to be a huge issue. Europe reacts to Trump's threat to Greenland. You can't buy the head popping around the world. Borders must not be but moved by force, a spokesperson for the German government said on Wednesday. Coming from the Blitzkrieg government, there is no question the EU's letting other nations in the world, who they ever may be, attack its sovereign borders. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen urged caution Tuesday night. As a very close ally of the United States, I think there's reason to welcome the growing American interest, but it must be done in a way that respects the Greenlandic people, she told Danish media. I think the Danish folks, the Greenlandic people are excited. I think that they would definitely be all in. And when you take a look at the geostrategic importance of Greenland, I'm all in because it would stop the strip mining that the Chinese are already doing. So I'm in.
Yeah, it is weird to think about that. We're obviously not going to take military force to Greenland. No. To say that's going to happen, it's disingenuous. Now, would we put pressure on Greenland to possibly vote to get out of Denmark's control and come to the U.S.? Maybe. I think the issue is Greenland wants to become an independent nation regardless. Now, The real question is, do they have enough revenue? I mean, do they have enough of an economy to do that? With all of their natural minerals, the answer is yes. It's part of the reason why, again, the United States wants it. They want all that money. Let's, again, come back to it. It's all about money. You know, it's not about, oh, we'd love to have the Greenlandic people as part of it. We can give a hoot about those people. It's about the money.
Let's take a little bit of a walk in history here for a second. The Panama Canal. The Panama was actually owned by Colombia in that area down in there. It was a different country, and we wanted the canal. So what did we do? We started a government. We forced a voluntarily new government of Panama, and we interfered in there until we got our Panama. And when we got the new government, we got the canal. So we have done that in the past.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it'll be very interesting to see.